The stars above the Corellan system blinked out one by one as a silent fleet entered orbit around the Wake Queen's Moon Palace. No alarm was raised, no defense shields activated, and not a single soldier moved to respond to the threat, because the Queen had already surrendered before the war even began. Across the galaxy, Earth Command watched in disbelief. A royal surrender? Without a single human shot fired? General Mason, leader of the Terran Ninth Fleet, narrowed his eyes at the holographic screen. He didn't trust it. Something felt off. Alien queens didn't just offer peace treaties to humans, especially not after 100 years of silence. In the royal palace, Queen Valeria of the Valar Empire stood tall and motionless. Her silver skin glowed beneath the palace lights. Her eyes violet and ancient focused, not on the human diplomats arriving, but on the single human soldier, standing silently behind them. Private Ray Carter didn't know why he'd been called here. He wasn't a diplomat, not even close. Just a war orphan turned Marine. He had no medals, no reputation. Nothing special. Until now, the Queen's voice was calm, rich, and laced with something no translator could catch, something raw. "We offer alliance," she said, "but we offer it through tradition. And tradition demands that you live among us. That you live with my daughter, Princess Elantha, and prove your species worthy of trust through personal bond." The human diplomats froze. This wasn't in the agreement. No one had prepared for this. Ray didn't even blink. He just stared at the Queen, confused. "Wait, you want me to live with her?" he asked. The Queen nodded. "Live, train, learn, protect, understand," she said. "Not mate, not yet. But the choice, in time, will be hers." Back in the human command ship, generals debated. Was it a trap? A test? Or something deeper, an alien custom with power they didn't understand? They couldn't risk war. And the Queen had made it clear, no alliance without this condition. So Ray Carter, confused and silent, stepped forward and accepted. The Queen turned away and whispered something to a robed servant. The servant moved fast, disappearing into the deeper halls of the palace. The Queen's gaze lingered on Ray for one last moment, measuring him, perhaps judging or warning. Minutes later, a young alien woman appeared in the chamber. She wasn't what Ray expected. She was tall, elegant, but wore no crown. Her long white hair shimmered like crystal. Her armor was old, dented, and looked like it had seen real battle. Princess Elantha didn't look at Ray. She looked at the humans like they were children. Then she pointed at him. "I don't need a human," she said. "And I don't want one living beside me." The Queen didn't flinch. "You will accept him. That is my will." Elantha's fists clenched. Her jaw locked. Then, wordlessly, she turned and walked out of the chamber. Ray followed, his boots echoing softly against the marble floor. Every soldier in the hallway stared at him with suspicion. To them, he was not a guest. He was a test. Or worse, a spy. His quarters were nothing like human barracks. High walls, alien geometry, glowing vines on the ceiling, and a faint hum that pulsed through the air. Princess Elantha waited for him inside, arms crossed. "There are rules," she said sharply. "You speak only when I allow. You don't touch anything. You stay out of my way." Ray didn't respond. He just nodded. Elantha didn't trust him. She didn't want to. But that night, as Ray sat silently in his corner, repairing a torn part of his uniform with old thread and a sewing needle, she watched him from the shadows. She had expected arrogance, bravado, demands, but all he did was patch the cloth in silence. The same way her own people used to before the wars ruined their homes. And something deep inside her, something hidden behind years of royal training and pride, shifted slightly. Because Ray Carter wasn't what she expected either. He was quiet, wounded, human, and something told her this was just the beginning. Ray woke to the sound of a soft hum vibrating through the palace walls. It wasn't the noise that disturbed him, but the silence of everyone around him. The guards didn't speak. The servants didn't make eye contact. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Princess Elantha was already up, standing in the training hall dressed in deep silver armor. Her arms were folded, and her expression was cold. Ray stepped onto the smooth stone floor without a word. His boots echoed as if the hall was warning him to leave. "You're late," she said without looking at him. He checked his wrist chrono. "I'm actually early," he replied. She turned to face him. "I meant emotionally," she said. "You're not prepared. You think this is just living with a princess. You don't understand what's coming." Ray didn't answer. He stood still, watching her take position with a practice staff. It spun in her hand like a blur of light. She was fast, but her movements weren't just for show. They were tight, purposeful, full of discipline. "You're not expected to win," she said. "But you are expected to try." Ray nodded and picked up a staff from the rack. It was longer than what he was used to, lighter too. But alien materials always had their surprises. The first clash was sharp and sudden. Elantha didn't hold back. Ray barely blocked in time, his arms vibrating with the force. "You block like a builder, not a fighter," she mocked. "And you talk like you're used to being obeyed," he replied. The second strike was faster. Ray ducked and swept low, trying to take her legs. She jumped over it effortlessly and kicked his chest, sending him rolling across the floor. Elantha didn't wait. She came at him again. Ray rolled aside, spun, and countered with a strike of his own. She blocked, surprised. By his timing, he wasn't stronger, but he learned fast. Every movement she made, he memorized. Every stance, every shift of her feet. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then another. Elantha finally stepped back, breathing heavy. Her silver armor gleamed with sweat. Ray's shirt was torn at the shoulder, and a bruise formed under his eye. But he stood tall. "Better," she said. "That was a compliment, right?" He asked. "No," she replied, but a flicker of amusement danced in her eyes. They trained daily, sometimes in silence, sometimes with harsh words. But every time they sparred, something changed. Ray wasn't just an outsider anymore. He became part of the routine, a challenge, a presence. Guards who once glared at him now nodded when he passed. Servants began leaving extra food on his tray. Even the ancient palace walls seemed less cold. One evening, Elantha found him on the balcony, overlooking the alien city. He was staring at the twin moons rising beyond the horizon. "Do you miss your world?" she asked quietly. Ray didn't turn. "I miss the feeling of knowing where I stand," he said. She joined him, her armor gone, replaced with soft royal fabric. Her hair was unbound, swaying in the gentle wind. "You stand in my world now," she said. "That should scare you." "It does," he said, looking at her for the first time. She didn't look away. Elantha had seen many warriors. None like him. He didn't fight with ego. He didn't speak with pride. He existed like a storm held. In silence, that night she didn't order him away. She sat beside him. And for the first time, they simply watched the moons together. But peace never lasted long in royal courts. The next morning, an emissary arrived from the Queen's Council. A reptilian alien in ceremonial armor. His tone was flat, but his words were sharp. "You've been summoned. Both of you." "By the Queen herself," he said. Ray exchanged a glance with Elantha. She looked just as surprised. In the throne chamber, Queen Valeria stood tall, her eyes colder than usual. Around her were advisors, nobles, and high command officers. "Threat approaches," the Queen said. "One of our own generals has betrayed us. He has taken ships and loyal soldiers to the outer moons. He will strike before the week ends." The chamber fell into silence. "He will not target me," she continued. "He will target the ones I shelter, the one I gave to Elantha." The human, Ray stepped forward. Then let him come, he said. Queen smiled faintly. Not in amusement, but approval. Alentha stood beside him, silent. But her fingers switched near her sword's hilt. Her body was tense. She didn't want to admit it. But something about this man, this human, made her feel less alone, because whether she wanted it or not, she would fight to protect him, just as he had already begun to protect her. The Queen's orders were clear. Ray and Alentha were to travel to the border moon of Thylene and investigate the traitor's rising forces. No escorts. No guards. Just the two of them, hidden under false identities. Their transport ship was small, fast, and disguised as a cargo vessel. Inside, the air smelled of metal and old dust. Alentha sat near the cockpit controls, silent, checking their course repeatedly. Ray leaned against the wall, arms folded. So we're bait, he said calmly. Alentha didn't look up. You are. I'm just the one keeping you alive, Ray smirked. Good to know where we stand. Their banter was sharp, but it masked something else. A bond. A silent understanding that neither had spoken out loud. Thylene was not like the royal moon. Its cities were low and cold, built into craters and tunnels. The people there were hardened by war, survival, and betrayal. Ray stepped into the dusty streets dressed in local fabric. His armor was hidden beneath layers of woven cloth. Alentha walked beside him in a cloak that covered her face and hair. Every step they took was watched. Shops fell silent. Drones floated above. No one smiled. They moved toward the contact the Queen had mentioned, an old miner named Jash, who once served under the traitor general. His home was nothing more than a cave with metal walls and an oil lamp flickering in the dark. You're either lost or stupid, Jash growled when they entered. Maybe both, Ray replied. But we're also sent by the Queen, Jash laughed, dry and broken. Then you're already dead. Alentha stepped forward, pulling back her hood. Do you know who I am? She asked. The old miner dropped his drink. He bowed quickly. Forgive me, princess. I thought you'd be smarter than this. What do you know about the general's plans? Ray asked. Jash hesitated. His hands trembled as he poured more fuel into the lamp. He's gathering those loyal to the old order, Jash said. He claims the Queen has weakened our kind by joining with humans. He says the throne must return to purity. To war. Alentha's voice was sharp. And how many believe him? Too many, Jash said. Especially those who lost family in the last war. They remember fire, not peace. Ray's eyes narrowed. Then he won't wait. He'll strike soon. Before they could ask more, a loud explosion shook the cavern. Dust rained from above. Lights flickered. Jash jumped to his feet. He found me. You have to leave. Now inside, a black shuttle had landed in the crater. Armored soldiers were already marching toward the cave. Alentha grabbed Ray's hand. Follow me. They ran through narrow tunnels behind the cave, slipping past pipes and broken wires. The air grew colder, thinner. Behind them, footsteps echoed like a drumbeat of doom. Ray slipped once, catching himself against the wall. Alentha didn't wait. She pulled him up and kept going. They burst into the lower streets, blending into a crowd of miners returning from the depths. Smoke covered the stars. Sirens wailed above. Ray saw a soldier aiming from the rooftop. Without thinking, he tackled Alentha to the ground as the shot blasted the air above them. She landed hard but didn't complain, her eyes locked on his. For 1 second, she saw something in him, something fierce, unshaken. They crawled through debris until they reached an old speeder hidden behind supply crates. Ray hotwired the controls while Alentha scanned for pursuers. 3 coming fast, she said. I'll delay them. No, Ray said. We go together. She looked ready to argue. But something in his voice stopped her. They jumped onto the speeder as it roared to life. Dust blasted into the air. Lasers fired past them, missing by inches. The ride through the lower city was violent. They hit broken walls, dipped under collapsed tunnels, and dodged broken signs hanging from overhead rails. Elentha's grip tightened as Ray steered wildly. Her hair blew free, silver streaks catching flashes of light from burning buildings around them. He didn't slow until they reached a safe zone deep in the underground, an abandoned transport bay with sealed doors and silence. Ray collapsed beside the speeder, breathing hard. "So much for a quiet mission," Elentha nodded. "He knows we're here." "That means he's afraid." Ray looked at her. "Or it means we're too late." She stood slowly, eyes scanning the darkness. "Either way, we fight." Ray rose beside her. Together. That word together lingered in the air, like a promise neither of them could fully explain. Asterisk. The abandoned transport bay was dark and cold. Old engines lined the walls like rusted bones. Silent and forgotten. Ray moved through the space with his weapon drawn. Elentha stayed close, her eyes scanning every shadow. They had only hours before the enemy tracked them here. The Queen had warned that if failed to reach the outpost on the northern ridge, they would lose all contact. Ray found an old terminal and powered it with a handheld cell. The screen blinked slowly, showing maps of ancient tunnels and paths beneath the surface. "We can take the old mag line," Ray said. "It connects straight to the ridge." Elentha studied the map. That route was sealed after the quake. "We could be walking into a collapsed zone," he nodded. "Or walking right past their patrols." She hesitated, then gave a short nod. They left the bay and entered the forgotten line. The tunnel stretched wide and deep, the rails coated in dust. Lights flickered overhead, barely holding charge from the ancient grid. The silence inside pressed down on them. Every step echoed, bouncing off the curved metal walls. Ray kept his hand near his sidearm. Elentha held a curved blade, its edge humming with faint energy. An hour passed, then two. They didn't speak much, only when needed. They had grown used to reading each other's movements. A glance, a breath, a sudden stop. At one bend, Ray raised a fist. Elentha froze. They heard something, a scraping, not metal. Something softer, alive. From the darkness, a shape emerged. Not a soldier. A child, thin, alien, shivering, and holding a broken data slate in both hands. Elentha stepped forward. "What are you doing down here?" she asked gently. The child didn't answer. He stared at Ray, wide-eyed, as if humans were monsters from his stories. Ray knelt. "We're not going to hurt you. Are you alone?" The child nodded slowly. Elentha frowned. "No one survives down here alone. Not unless they're hiding from something worse." Suddenly, the child screamed. "Behind you!" Ray spun. A blast of red light hit the tunnel wall. Soldiers were already rushing in, dropping from access vents. Elentha shouted, pushing the child behind a support beam. She slashed through the first soldier, spinning low and fast. Ray opened fire. His shots were clean, precise. Two went down before the rest hit cover. The fight inside the narrow tunnel turned brutal. There was no room to dodge, only block or strike back. Ray took a hit to the shoulder but didn't fall. He tackled the nearest soldier and used his weapon to silence him. Elentha's blade danced like light. She moved with deadly grace, cutting through armor and bone. In less than a minute, it was over. The tunnel was silent again. Bodies lay twisted around the rails. The child stared at them with new eyes. Not fear this time, something else. Respect. Ray winced and pressed a hand to his shoulder. "That could have gone worse." Elentha helped him up. "You moved well, even when hurt." He gave a small nod. "You weren't too bad either." She smiled faintly. It was the first time he'd seen her do that. They took the child with them. He said little, but stayed close to Ray, like something in the human's presence made him feel safe. By nightfall, they reached a service ladder that led to the surface. Above them was the northern ridge, the Queen's hidden outpost. Ray climbed first. The wind above was sharp and cold, carrying dust across the flat rock plains. In the distance, lights blinked. Friend or foe, he couldn't tell. Elentha climbed. Next, pulling the child with her. They crouched behind a ridge wall and studied the scene. Enemy ships circled the sky. Drones buzzed above the outpost's roof. The Queen's forces were pinned down. Elentha narrowed her eyes. They've already begun the attack. Ray checked his ammo. Then we hit them from the side. You and me, against all that? He looked at her and shrugged. We've done worse today. They crept along the ridge edge, using shadows for cover. Ray disabled 2 drones with silent rounds. Elentha marked enemy weak points on her visor. Then they struck. Ray threw a flare toward the west, drawing soldiers away. Elentha dropped into the east side, blade spinning. Chaos erupted. The Queen's trapped forces saw the signal and charged. From the base gates, explosions lit up the night. The traitor general's men didn't expect the surprise. Within minutes, the battle turned. Ray fought beside Elentha, his shoulder burning, his eyes sharp. She stayed close, covering his blind spots. Together, they cut through the line. The Queen's banner rose again above the outpost. After the smoke cleared, Ray stood near the broken wall, catching his breath. Elentha approached, silent for a moment. You shouldn't have survived that. She said, neither should you, he replied, and for the first time she didn't argue. The outpost's medbay was dim and quiet. Ray sat on a steel bed while a medical drone patched up his shoulder. The wound stung, but he didn't flinch. Elentha stood across the room, arms crossed. Her blade rested on the table beside her. Her armor was scorched and cracked, but she looked calm. You didn't have to take that shot, she said without looking at him. You would have taken it from me, Ray replied. She stayed silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. The Queen's message arrived shortly after. A secure hologram lit the room. Her image flickered with static, but her voice carried authority. You have done well, Queen Valeria said. The traitor's forces have been scattered, but the general himself has vanished. Ray stepped forward. We believe he's gone to the desert world of Ashkar. The people there still follow him. The Queen's eyes narrowed. Then you must go to Ashkar. But this time, you will not go alone. 2 guards entered the room, followed by a tall alien male in deep gray armor. His face was marked with old battle scars. This is Commander Velkin, the Queen said. He will assist in your mission. Ray looked at Elentha. She gave a small nod, but her expression was unreadable. Commander Velkin bowed slightly. I serve the princess. I will also protect the human. Ashkar was a dry and burning place. Its skies were always orange. Sandstorms moved across the land. Like living beasts, Ray stood inside a small airship with Elentha and Velkin beside him. The wind outside howled against the metal. The general has a fortress near the cliff cities, Velkin said. It's hidden, but the locals know of it. We'll need to speak with them, Elentha replied. Not as soldiers. As survivors. When they landed, the town looked like bones, cracked walls, burned flags, children with hollow eyes. Ray walked through the streets slowly, nodding at those who dared to meet his gaze. Many turned away. Some spat at the ground. They entered a gathering house built of old stone and metal scraps. Inside, the village elder waited. Her skin was pale and dry, her voice like sand. You wear the Queen's mark, she said. We do not bow to her. We're not here for bows, Ray said. We're here to stop more bloodshed. The elder studied him. You're human, she said. Yet you speak like one of us. War teaches the same lessons everywhere. He replied. She motioned for them to sit. The general passed through here. He took our strongest, promised protection, promised power. He lied, Elentha said. We know, the elder replied. But he gave us one thing the Queen did not. A voice. Ray leaned forward. Then let me offer something better. A future. One that doesn't demand silence or chains. The elder didn't respond at first. Then she reached under the table and placed an old data cube in front of them. This has the coordinates of his hidden base, she said. Take it, end this war. Or at least end the one that's still burning inside us. They left that night. Askar's night sky was cold and full of stars. The sand glowed under the moons. The journey to the cliff base took 6 hours on foot. Ray led the way. Vulcan followed close behind. Alintha moved with practiced ease, her senses sharp. When they reached the edge of the cliffs, they saw it. A fortress carved into the rock, lit from within by flickering blue lights. Guards patrolled the walls. Cannons pointed at the sky. It wasn't a base. It was a prison built for war. They hid behind a ridge and studied the layout. Vulcan pointed to a side gate with fewer guards. We enter there. Silent, swift. Ray checked his gear. We get the general. Alive if we can. Alintha nodded. But if not, we make sure he doesn't leave. Under the cover of darkness they moved. The sand muffled their steps. One by one, the outer guards fell, stunned or silenced by Alintha's blade. Inside the base, alarms didn't sound. The enemy didn't expect anyone to come this deep. They found the general in a chamber of glass and fire, standing before a hologram of old war maps. His armor was black and polished, his eyes cold and sharp. I was expecting the Queen's daughter, he said. Not her pet human. Ray stepped forward. I'm not her pet. I'm the one who ends this. The general laughed. Then do it. But know this. The Queen's peace is built on weakness. I offer power. Alintha raised her sword. Power built on fear dies in silence. The general struck first, fast, brutal. But Ray blocked the blow. Sparks flew. Vulcan moved to cover their flank. Alintha engaged the general directly. The room shook with force. Steel rang against steel. Ray landed a hard strike that sent the general crashing into a wall. He rose again, bleeding, but slower. Now Alintha didn't hesitate. She struck him down and placed her sword at his throat. Ray looked into the general's eyes. It's over. The general lay unconscious, bound by glowing restraints. Alintha stood over him, her blade still drawn. Her breathing was steady, but her eyes burned with something cold. Ray knelt beside the fallen man, checking his vitals. He'll live, he said. Vulcan moved to secure the exits. We don't have long. His followers will notice his silence. Soon, they dragged the general from the chamber, moving fast through the narrow stone corridors. Alarms hadn't gone off yet, but that could change in seconds. Alintha took the lead, guiding them toward a back hangar bay where a hidden shuttle was waiting. As they neared the bay, voices echoed behind them. Armored soldiers appeared, shouting orders and charging forward. Ray spun and fired. Alintha blocked a blast with her blade. Vulcan returned fire, covering their escape. The fight was chaotic. Flashes of light, the scream of metal, the weight of footsteps behind them. Ray was hit in the leg but kept moving. Alintha grabbed his arm and pulled him forward, refusing to let him fall. Vulcan threw a grenade behind them, sealing the corridor in fire and dust. They reached the shuttle just in time. Ray collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, bleeding and breathless. Vulcan started the engines. Alintha locked the hatch behind them. The ship lifted off, rising into the dark sky of Ashkar. Enemy fire chased them, but they broke through the clouds. Ray gripped the controls, overriding the shuttle's damage warnings. We won't make it to the palace. We need to land on neutral ground. Alintha nodded. There's an old relay station on the ice moon. No one will follow us there. The flight to the ice moon was rough. Turbulence shook the ship. Ray's leg was numb. Alintha moved between him and Vulcan, trying to keep the ship steady. They landed hard on a frozen ridge. The shuttle slid before, stopping near a dead communications tower. Ray was pulled from the cockpit and laid on a heated blanket inside the station's ruin. Alintha treated his wound with careful hands. "You need real medical care," she said. "I've had worse." Ray muttered, wincing. Vulcan secured the general in a containment field. The prisoner woke, weak and silent. He stared at Alintha with hate, but said nothing. Snow fell outside in slow, heavy flakes. The wind howled across the metal walls of the station. Inside, warmth returned only slowly. Alintha sat beside Ray, armor gone, wearing thick survival gear. Her eyes studied him with something softer now. "You could have let me die in the fortress," she said. "You would have done the same," he replied. "Maybe," she whispered. There was silence between them, not the cold kind. Something different. Something warm. Ray shifted, his voice low. "You're not what I expected when I met you. And you're not what I feared when I saw you," she said. Outside, Vulcan kept watch. Inside, the two sat close without words. Ray closed his eyes, the pain dull now. "Will your mother be proud?" Alintha looked at the snow-covered window. "She will be surprised." That's a start. The next day, a royal ship arrived. The queen stepped onto the ice herself. Cloaked in regal armor, she walked past her guards, past Vulcan, and straight toward Ray. Her expression was unreadable. "You have done what none could," she said. Ray tried to sit, but the queen raised a hand. "Rest, human. You have earned more than just thanks." She turned to Alintha. "And you led him through fire. I see now why he survived." Alintha bowed her head. "He was never just a guest, mother. He became something more." The queen studied them both. Her eyes were sharp but calm. Then she looked to her advisors. "From this day," she said, "human will no longer be a guest. He will be protector, guardian to the heir. And if Alintha chooses more than that," Ray blinked. "Wait, what does that mean?" Alintha stood beside him. Her voice was clear. "It means your life is about to change." The return to the royal moon was quiet but tense. Ray sat in the queen's personal ship, his legs still bandaged and healing. The window beside him showed stars blinking past like cold memories. Across from him, Alintha sat with her hands folded. Her expression was calm, but her eyes drifted to him more often than before. Neither of them spoke much on the journey back. Some truths didn't need to be spoken yet. When they landed, the queen's guards formed a line on the platform. The people of the palace gathered in silence. They had heard of the mission, of the traitor's fall, of the human who had not died. The queen stood at the top of the palace stairs, her robe flowing behind her. Her voice rang out like music mixed with steel. "Let all know," she declared, "that this human has earned more than honor. He has earned our trust. And with my blessing, he will walk as one of us." Ray didn't smile. He only bowed slightly. The gesture alone brought murmurs through the crowd. Alintha stood beside him, taller, stronger, and no longer uncertain. Later that night, the celebration began. Lights filled the city. Dancers moved through the palace halls. Food from across the empire was laid out in towers of color and scent. But Ray didn't stay long in the main hall. Crowds still made him uncomfortable. Cheers didn't feel like peace. He stepped out onto a high balcony and stared out at the stars. The wind was cool, but not cold. Not anymore. Alintha joined him minutes later. Her hair was braided, her armor gone, replaced with royal blue garments edged in silver. "You ran away from your own party," she said. "I didn't run. I just walked quietly," he replied. She smiled. "And yet I followed you." They stood in silence for a while, listening to the distant music. Ray glanced at her. "You don't seem like the girl who hated humans anymore. You don't seem like the soldier who followed orders anymore." He nodded. Maybe we're both something new now. Elantha turned to face him fully. My mother gave me a choice. She said if I wished, I could make you more than guardian. I could name you consort, or even life mate. Ray blinked. That's a big decision. It is, she said. But I've already made it. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped, not in volume, but in weight. You walked into our world alone. You were tested, hunted, nearly broken. But you never ran. You stood with me. You bled for me. And somewhere in that fire, I stopped seeing you as just human. Ray didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was answer enough. Elantha reached for his hand. He took hers without hesitation. Behind them, the celebration continued. But out here, under the stars, something deeper was happening. Elantha whispered again. Will you stay? Ray met her eyes. I already have. The next morning, the queen called them both into the great chamber. It was quiet, guarded, and formal. Velkin stood beside the throne, now wearing ceremonial robes. The general's trial was set for the next moon cycle. The empire was stabilizing again. The queen spoke without delay. You have chosen each other. I have seen it. I approve. But now comes the harder part. You must walk as one. Not just in heart, but in duty. Ray looked at Elantha. She gave a firm nod. The queen continued. There are systems beyond ours. Alliances waiting to form. Enemies watching. You will represent more than love. You will represent unity. I understand, Ray said. And I accept, Elantha added. Later, as they walked through the royal gardens, Ray paused beside a strange flower. Its petals shimmered in silver and gold. He touched it gently. What is it? He asked. Elantha stepped beside him. It only blooms when peace is true. Most say it's a myth, Ray smiled. Then maybe we're living in a myth now, she laughed softly. A rare sound. A sound only he had learned how to earn. They walked on, hand in hand, not just as a soldier and a princess, but something more, something the galaxy had never seen before, a union that started in war and grew in quiet moments. In shared danger, in stubborn hearts that refused to let go. And with every step, they wrote a new future together. Months passed since the trial of the traitor general. The galaxy watched as the Valiari Empire and the Human Federation began. Building something the stars had never seen before. An alliance not born of fear, but of respect. Ray stood beside Elantha on the upper balcony of the newly constructed Unity Tower. A monument rising from the moon's capital. Ships passed above. Them in silent formation. Some bore human flags, others the silver crest of the queen. All flew together. Below, markets bustled with alien and human traders. Children from both worlds played under hybrid light pylons. Elantha turned toward Ray. When I was a child, I thought peace was weakness. I thought it made us soft. He looked at her with a quiet smile. And now? She stepped closer. Now I see peace as the hardest path. It takes more strength to forgive than to strike. They were no longer just partners in duty. They were life mates, bonded under both Valiari law and human vows. Their union was not just political. It had become the symbol of something greater. A future others could believe in. Ray had taken on a new title, Warden of Accord. Not a soldier, not a prince, but the bridge between two people once kept apart by fear. He wore no crown, no armor, only a silver band on his wrist given by Elantha. During their private ceremony, Elantha had changed too. She now walked freely among her people without her guard, no longer feared but followed with admiration. In the great hall of councils, she stood beside Ray, making decisions not just for her empire, but for the joint future they had vowed to protect. But peace never came without challenge. Rumors spread of factions unhappy with the blending of cultures. Whispers of separatists in the outer colonies reached the palace daily. One morning, a message arrived from the ice moon where Ray had once nearly died. A group of Valiari nobles had gone missing. The last signal came from an abandoned temple system beneath the frozen crust. Ray and Elantha boarded a scout ship without delay. Despite their status, they insisted on handling the matter themselves. "I thought we left this kind of trouble behind," Ray said as he checked his gear. Elantha smiled. "Peace doesn't mean danger disappears. It means we face it together now." The temple beneath the ice was darker than memory. Long tunnels stretched, like veins through ancient stone and frozen metal. Their lights cut through the darkness. Echoes bounced back from every step. It felt like walking into the bones of a forgotten god. Ray found signs of struggle. Footprints, heat signatures, broken gear. "They were here," he said. Elantha nodded. And not alone. Moments later, shadows moved from the deeper corridors. Robed figures stepped forward, armed but cautious. Their leader removed her hood, revealing sharp silver eyes and a familiar royal symbol on her collar. "You should not have come," she said. Elantha stepped forward, blade ready. "You are betraying your people." The woman shook her head. "No, I am saving them. The Queen has given too much to the humans. Our blood, our pride. You gave yourself to one of them." Ray didn't speak. He only watched, waiting. Elantha's voice was cold. "I gave myself to someone who stood by me when no one else did. That makes him worth more than titles or bloodlines." The woman raised her weapon. "Then he dies here. And with him, your false dream." Before she could fire, Ray moved. A flash of light. A sound like thunder. When it ended, the woman lay stunned. The others backed away, uncertain. Elantha lowered her blade. "Take your wounded and leave. Tell the others that peace is not surrender. It is survival." The group vanished into the shadows. Ray turned toward Elantha and gave a tired smile. "You're getting better at speeches." She rolled her eyes. "Don't let it go to your head." They rescued the nobles and returned to the palace. The Queen greeted them with open arms. Even she, once unreadable, now smiled more freely when Ray entered the hall. That evening, Ray sat in the garden, watching the twin moons rise. Elantha joined him in silence, leaning her head gently against his shoulder. This wasn't the future I imagined, she whispered. "Same," Ray said. "It's better." They didn't speak after that. They didn't need to, because against every expectation, every tradition, and every enemy, they had built something impossible. A bond that reshaped an empire, and a love that changed a galaxy.